Welcome to the show once again. This is the campaign edition of Choice 2017. Once again, the president, that is President Uhuru Kenyatta, and his Jubilee Brigade are at the coast. He's going to stay there for about 3 days, trying to woo support from the coast region. He is expected any moment from now to address his supporters at Jomvuku. And in Nyanza, to be specific, in Nyamira County, NASA's presidential candidate Raila Odinga and the other top leaders of the NASA outfit are in Nyamira County trying to get support there from the larger Nyanza County. Once again, this is the campaign edition. Let's now cross over to some politics from West Pokot.
Who are known for
hapa wanapigana, wengine executive wanapiga the judiciary wanapiga executive. Sasa hii dunia itaenda wapi? Tunataka tuheshimiane, watu waheshimu offices yao, constitutional offices.
Hii fununu tumeona tangu jana, ati mnapishana. Oh Maranga, oh president, oh Jubilee, oh Judiciary, oh NASA kwa kando huko. Mambo kama hiyo tumekataa, sema tumekataa. Mpaka wanaanza kusema huyu ni alioa dada ya fulani, huyu ni ndugu ya fulani. Sasa ukisema hivyo na sisi ni ukoo yote kwa Kenya hii, mnataka ni mnagani? Si ndio? So mambo kama hayo tusianze kulete fitina, itaanza kusaa madhambi yenye si nzuri sana.
Well, those are comments coming from leaders there from West Pokot. Now, Mark, these are leaders who come from mostly KANU party, and KANU by fine and large is now part of Jubilee. Well, they've not folded their party, but at least they are affiliated to Jubilee, and they've decided to support President Uhuru Kenyatta. But there you go. They're saying they're tired of this, leaders pinpointing, various institutions for their problems.
You see, this is the problem, that Kenyans do not understand the independence of their institutions. The judiciary is an independent body, the executive is independent, and so is the legislature. This needs to be the case throughout the country. Now, when you don't understand that, then you have the kind of unfortunate statements that are thrown arbitrarily by politicians all over the place. But again, KANU and Rift Valley politics, very interesting dynamics. Number one, you have to ask yourself, why didn't KANU fold? Okay, because there's something called 2022. All right, now 2022 is going to be an interesting fight for the rift between Ruto and Gideon Moi. That is what is being played out as subtly as possible, but that's what is happening. So that's going to be interesting to watch how many seats will KANU win. You remember the Kericho by-election, which was tight down to the wire. And the reality is, whereas these two parties are pushing for the presidency the same way, but they're setting the stage for 2022 to see whether Gideon Moi can have his own path back into supremacy in the rift. That is really what it's about. But the statements on the political independence, I think, to be honest, every political party should let IEBC stand by itself. I think on the side of NASA, 31 cases in court are not helping, and on the side of Jubilee, it's not very smart to keep being seen as though you're siding with the referee. It's not a smart move. So yes, the independence of these institutions need to be enshrined within our political statements.
Already speaking about independence of institutions, from those comments from those leaders in West Pokot, they're trying to show like they also have an independent mind as much as they're supporting President Uhuru Kenyatta and the Jubilee Party. Remember, they come from the KANU party.
Yeah, of course, in this matter that Mr. Lonyangafu has talked about, it is very unfortunate to cross a chain of multiple families to go and find a relationship between a judge and a member of a party. I think that was very unfortunate. It was not well thought out. If you wanted to get relationship between me and Uhuru Kenyatta, you will get it after 2 generations only. But here, this one was fought for about 4 of them. To get so-and-so married, so-and-so's friend, sister, so they are now relatives. If you started doing that, there will be no judge who will take any case in this country. So I think that was unfortunate. Probably it needs an apology from whoever propagated that kind of thing.
Prof.
You see, the independent institutions have been made less independent by these repeated attacks, many of them unwarranted, questioning the right to act and the ability to act. One of the problems that has arisen, now talking about the judiciary. Before these cases were made or decided, there were repeated threats to the IBC and to the judiciary that they should not decide in a particular way. Those were repeated and created the impression that the judiciary was being intimidated to decide in a particular way. So when the decision was made and it appeared to go in a particular way favoring those who are intimidating the judiciary, it appeared as if the judges had been intimidated. Whether they were or not is not the issue. But the perception that there was no fairness in the decision, in part because the judges had questions. And the statement that have been made, maybe some judges should have recused themselves from, because the very appearance of impropriety, whether it's far-fetched or not is not the issue. The very appearance is damaging to the judiciary. And that's what the stage we are in right now, that it is seeming as if some officers are not above reproach. We have had the former Chief Justice, we have had even the current Chief Justice complaining about corruption in the judiciary. Now that in itself is not very encouraging. So the appeal would make is if politicians, particular politicians, would cease attacking the IBC or the judiciary, then we might go forward. But the politicians, being politicians, they have problems behaving properly.
Discipline.
Speaking about the ruling, I think I've heard your comment on that. Now, Vedi, speaking about the ruling, you know, it has gone NASA's way. That is the earlier ruling, and NASA, of course, smiling all the way to the bank, you know, giving judiciary all sorts of praises. What if that ruling could have gone the other way?
But I think when judges give their rulings, they give every reason why it's gone that way, every law that they relied on, every precedent that they relied on. So I think we should not talk about the threats making the courts rule in a certain way, especially for somebody who does not have power or authority to influence anything. But look over a scenario where a sitting cabinet minister, a sitting DP, or a sitting president gives warning to the judiciary or to IEBC, because they are the people who are charged with the responsibility of initiating any disciplinary action to anyone in these bodies. So they have the power to do it. So it is them more who needs to restrain from such threats.
Mark, as you react to that, speaking about scenarios, let's come back to, you know, the issues that, you know, most Kenyans are waiting to know about. That is about, you know, the August 8th election. What is the worst case scenario? Because we are seeing, you know, the push and pull between the IEBC and NASA, the courts. Time is ticking.
Yes.
We're just 22 days away from the general elections.
You know, the worst case scenario is a situation where the IEBC is forced into a long tendering process. Now, various people argue that the tendering process could be short, long, you need a day to do these things. But just from experience, we know that any organ doing a national thing does not take a short time to do anything. That's just experience. I am not a procurement expert, so I cannot say
especially when you're dealing with elections.
Exactly. And then, of course, even then, when you're choosing a new person, then you have to please every party that is there, because there's this whole public participation and things like that. So the reality of the matter is the worst case scenario is a situation where Al Ghurair is totally unacceptable, and we have to look for a third party that is acceptable by everyone within the time that is there. Now, that creates a number of constitutional problems. Number one, Parliament is not sitting, Senate is not sitting, there's no one who's working as far as legislation is concerned, and the IEBC will find itself in a legal conundrum where they're trying to figure out how do they have the August election happen. That is the worst case scenario. That being said, I think, and I reiterate this, I think that every politician should step away from intimidating these bodies, or even seeming to be directing them, so that now if they do what you want, it seems they're siding with you, or if they don't do what you want, it seems they're not siding with you. I think they should all step back and let the IEBC decide, because the reality of the matter is this, that the biggest stumbling block to IEBC being able to deliver this election is not going to be Al Ghurair, it's going to be politicians. Let's just be very clear. It is a political issue, because the courts cleared Al Ghurair of any wrongdoing. They could not find it. The only reason that tender was cancelled was because of public participation, not for collusion, not for being in bed with certain people. So the reality of the matter, what is left now is a political baby. How it's handled by the politicians will determine whether we get into that crisis situation or not.
Already, as much as we're going to engage in, blame game and see who was not done what and who was done this and that, let me refer to them as innocent Kenyans, the laymen out there. They want to practice their democratic right on all state.
Correct.
And right up until now, we don't have the ballot papers in place.
Correct.
Today, we are just 22 days away from the general election.
Correct.
So, what is the way forward?
Let me tell you, Yusuf, it is the way the people act that creates suspicion. But to suggest that 20 days is not enough to print the presidential ballot papers, that is not true. First of all, you remember, if there was any form of procurement done before, then they must have been number 1, number 2, number 3. So if at one point Al Ghurair was rejected and then the court allows them to move on, all they needed to do is take number 2. If that didn't happen, then it follows that there was single sourcing for the printing of ballot papers, which they can now do again after the court ruling. But to also suggest that there is no time to print the presidential ballots, I want to remind you that even the standard group where we are sitting here now, they take 2 hours to print to print almost 1 million newspapers with 60 pages.
But
what I'm telling you, we need to...
These are ballot papers we're talking about. These are not
Let me tell you, ballot papers have little text in them. A newspaper has so much in it, which includes editing, which includes formatting, and then arrangement. But ballot papers are single pages of maybe 12 names, 2 names, 3 names. Like in this presidential one, there will be 8 names printed of the same copy, which those machines will run in 1 hour. They will have all of them, and those machines are set in such a way, by the time the paper comes out at that end, it is sorted, waiting to get into a carton box and be shipped to Nairobi. It can be done in 4 days if they are willing to do it.
Prof. Owidi says it can be done in 4 days. We have 22 days to go. It seems, according to him, we have enough time.
Well, we are pressed for time. I understand what he's trying to say. But the crunch is big. And I think this is now where the judiciary is required to exercise wisdom, since the ball is in its court, and to rise above legalese and finese into the interest of the country. From what I understand, the procurement of this printing service initially had gone very well. Then somebody, the court said, no, you shouldn't have done it that way, because they had followed the procedure, because there was no commission official. That became the excuse. Then you have other things. So we need now for the people responsible to rise above.
That is the judiciary talking about.
Yes, to rise above this thing, so that I would agree that with digital printing, maybe it can be done in even 2 days, maybe. But there is more to it than simply the printing. There are logistics, there are arrangements, there are all those things that need. That's why I think the Constitution was talking about timelines, so that things can be done properly. So I think we are pressing too much to...
I think that should serve as your final comment. Judiciary should apply wisdom in this case. Mark, your final comment. Almost out of time.
I think my final comment to the nation actually would be, number one, we're going to have peace, because it's you and I. I'm not going to fight you, so we're going to have peace. The second thing is, I think we need to exercise a lot of wisdom and restraint in as far as the judiciary and the IEBC are concerned, because let's understand, there are 30 cases already in court pre-election. that tells me that there's a likelihood that there could be petitions after. So let's be careful how we handle these independent organizations.
Okay, thank you. Owidi, your final comments.
I think to the people of Kenya, it is important to note that it takes us to decide whether we want peace or we want war, whether we want peace or we want violence. Because now going forward, violence must be triggered by some people, talking to other people, instructing them of what to do or what not to do. But the person who has the absolute key of whether we'll have peace or violence is IEBC. If they seem to act well, we will not have any violence.
So they should do their homework, basically.
Thank you.
Many thanks, Owidi, for your comment. Many thanks, Professor,
Okay,
for your comment.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can get to you. Thanks a lot, Mark, for your comment. Of course, that marks the end of our show this afternoon. This has been the campaign edition of Choice 2017, but we'll not stop covering the campaigns here for you. Up next is Mbuya KTN with Mary Kilobi, and she's going to take over those key two political rallies, one in Mombasa that is going to be addressed by President Uhuru Kenyatta. Of course, he's going to talk to his Jubilee supporters there at Jomvuku, and the other in Nyamira County, and it's going to be led by none other than the NASA's presidential candidate Raila Odinga. Many thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye for now.